The first thing I remember is the light. Not harsh fluorescent hospital light, but something softer, filtered through pale blue curtains that swayed gently in the breeze from an open window. I didn't know where I was at first. My mind felt thick, like trying to think through cotton wool. Then I saw her. Emma was sitting in a chair beside my bed, her dark hair pulled back in that messy bun she always wore when she was stressed. But she wasn't looking stressed. She was smiling, really smiling. The kind of smile that reached her eyes and made the corners crinkle just like her mother's used to. "Dad," she said softly, leaning forward. "You're awake." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry, scratchy. She was already reaching for a cup of water with a straw, helping me take small sips. The water was cold and perfect, and I felt a little more human with each swallow. Where am I? I finally managed. "Memorial Hospital," Emma said, setting the cup down carefully on the rolling table beside the bed. "You've been here for 3 days." 3 days. The words floated in my mind, but didn't quite land. I looked around the room properly for the first time. Standard hospital setup, machines beeping softly, and 4 lying running into my arm. The smell of antiseptic and something else, something familiar I couldn't quite place. 3 days, I repeated, my voice still rough. What happened? Emma's smile faltered just a little, but she caught it, held on to it. You don't remember? I searched my memory, trying to push through the fog. I remembered. What did I remember? Being at home, making coffee. It was morning, or was it? The images in my mind felt like photographs that had been left in the sun too long, faded and indistinct. I'm not sure, I admitted. She reached over and took my hand. Her fingers were warm, solid, real. That's okay, Dad. The doctor said you might be a little confused at first. It's normal. Normal. Nothing about this felt normal, but I nodded anyway because Emma needed me to. Because even through the fog and confusion, I could see something in her eyes that I recognized. Relief. Deep, overwhelming relief. How do you feel? She asked. I took inventory. My head ached, a dull throb at the base of my skull. My body felt heavy, exhausted, like I'd run a marathon. But beyond that, nothing seemed broken or damaged. Tired, I said. Really tired. But okay, I think. That's good. That's really good, Dad. She squeezed my hand again, and I noticed for the first time that her eyes were wet. Not crying exactly, but on the edge of it. Like she'd been holding something back for a long time and was only now allowing herself to let it go. Emma, sweetheart, what happened to me? She opened her mouth to answer, but before she could, the door swung open and a doctor walked in. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of calm, measured demeanor that comes from years of delivering both good news and bad. "Mr. Patterson," he said warmly, "it's good to see you awake. And Dr. Chen, how are you feeling?" "Confused mostly," I said honestly. He smiled. The kind of smile doctors give when they've heard that 1,000 times before. "That's understandable. You've been through quite an ordeal." He pulled up a chair on the other side of the bed, opposite Emma. "What's the last thing you remember clearly?" I thought hard, pushing against the cotton wool in my brain. I was at home. In the kitchen. Making coffee, I think. It was morning. What day was it? Tuesday. Maybe Wednesday. I'm not sure. Dr. Chun nodded, making a note on the tablet he carried. "And what month would you say it was?" "October," I said with more confidence. "Early October." He glanced at Emma just briefly, but I caught it. Some silent communication passed between them. "Dad," Emma said gently, "it's November 15th. November 15th. The words didn't make sense. But that's not possible. That's more than a month. "I know," Emma said. A lot has happened. Dr. Chun set down his tablet and leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Mr. Patterson, you were brought to the emergency room 3 days ago by your daughter. You were unconscious. Do you remember anything about that day? Anything at all? I closed my eyes, trying to force the memories to surface. There was something there, something important, but it kept slipping away like water through my fingers. Take your time, the doctor said, and then slowly, fragments began to emerge. Not the kitchen. Somewhere else. The garage. I was in the garage. Why was I in the garage? I hardly ever went in there anymore. Not since Sarah died. The thought of familiar ache, even after 3 ache, even after 3 years. She'd been the one who actually used the garage, who knew where everything was, who could fix a leaky faucet or rewire a lamp without breaking a sweat. After she was gone, I'd basically let the place become a storage unit for things I couldn't bear to look at, but couldn't throw away. The garage, I said slowly. I was in the garage. That's right, Emma said, her voice encouraging. You were, but I don't. Why was I there? Dr. Chun and Emma exchanged another look. We were hoping you could tell us that, the doctor said. I shook my head, frustrated with myself. I don't know. I can't remember. It's okay, Dad, it really is. The important thing is you're awake and you're okay. But I didn't feel okay. I felt like someone had taken a puzzle of my life and removed pieces at random, leaving gaps I couldn't explain. Can someone please just tell me what happened? Dr. Chun sat back, considering his words carefully. You were found by your daughter after she became concerned when you didn't answer her phone calls. You were unconscious in your garage. Your car was running. The words landed like stones, one after another, building a picture I didn't want to see. The carbon monoxide levels in your blood were dangerously high, he continued. Another 10 or 15 minutes, and we'd be having a very different conversation right now. Or no conversation at all. Carbon monoxide. The garage. The car running. My mind tried to reject what he was saying, tried to find an innocent explanation. But the weight of it, the terrible logic of it, pressed down on me. IWODN, single quotes T, ... I started, but the words died in my throat. Dad, Emma said, and her voice was so full of love and pain that it made my chest hurt. It's okay. You don't have to explain anything right now. But I did. I needed to understand. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw that she'd been crying. Not just today, but for days. Her eyes were shadowed with exhaustion, her face thinner than I remembered. She looked older. When had my little girl gotten so much older? How long was I forgetting things? I asked. The question seemed to surprise her. What do you mean? I don't remember October, Emma. I don't remember November. What else don't I remember? She bit her lip, that old childhood habit she thought she'd broken. Dad, I think we should talk about this when you're feeling stronger. Please, I said. I need to know. Dr. Chun cleared his throat. Mr. Patterson, you've experienced what we call anterograde amnesia. It's not uncommon after carbon monoxide poisoning. The memories may come back, or they may not. Right now, your brain needs time to heal. But I'm okay. Physically, you're very lucky. Most people who reach the carbon monoxide levels you had don't wake up. You have your daughter to thank for that. He gestured to Emma. She found you just in time. I looked at my daughter, and suddenly I could see it all so clearly on her face. The terror she must have felt. The panic. The desperate race to save me. Emma, I'm so sorry. She shook her head quickly, swiping at her eyes. Don't apologize. Just ... Just get better, okay? Dr. Chun stood up. I'm going to give you two some privacy. We'll run some more tests later, but for now, just rest. Your body has been through a significant trauma. He paused at the door. Mr. Patterson, we have a counselor on staff. I'd like you to speak with her before you're discharged. It's standard protocol in cases like yours. Cases like mine. Cases where a 62-year-old man is found unconscious in his garage with the car running. Cases where the word suicide hangs in the air unspoken but undeniable. After he left, Emma and I sat in silence for a long moment. The machines beeped. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. Normal hospital sounds. Normal life continuing all around us while my world felt like it was tilting on its axis. I don't remember trying to hurt myself, I said finally. I know. I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't. She squeezed my hand so hard it almost hurt. I know that too, Dad. Then what happened? Why was I in the garage? Why was the car on? Emma took a deep breath like she was preparing to dive into deep water. Dad, do you remember Dr. Martinez? The name triggered something, a flash of memory. An office. A woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun. She'd been asking me questions. Lots of questions. You're a neurologist, I said. Yes, I saw her in September, August. You've been seeing her since June, Dad, every month. June. 5 months I couldn't account for. Why? Emma's eyes filled with tears again, but this time she let them fall. You were having problems. Forgetting things. Getting confused. Little things at first. You tell me the same story twice in one conversation. You couldn't remember what day it was. You missed a lunch we had planned. The words triggered more flashes. Emma calling, sounding worried. Me insisting I was fine. Her face across a restaurant table, that forced smile that meant she was scared but trying not to show it. You made me see a doctor, I said. You agreed to go. You were worried too, even though you tried to hide it. What did she say? Dr. Martinez. Emma stood up and walked to the window, looking out at something I couldn't see. She did tests. Lots of them. MRI, cognitive assessments, blood work. It took weeks to get all the results back. I waited, my heart starting to beat faster. She said you have early-stage Alzheimer's disease, Dad. The words hit me like a physical blow. Alzheimer's. The disease that had taken Sarah's mother. I'd watched what it did to her. Watched as the woman who taught me how to tie a tie and make lasagna from scratch slowly disappeared into confusion and fear. I promised myself I'd never let that happen to me. Never put my family through that hell. That can't be right, I said. Even though somewhere deep down, I think I'd always known. Dr. Martinez was pretty certain. The symptoms match. The imaging showed some changes in your brain. Your memory tests. She trailed off, wiping her eyes. They weren't good, Dad. I tried to process this, tried to remember being told this diagnosis, but there was nothing. Just a blank space where those memories should have been. I don't remember her telling me. She told you in September? I was there. We talked about treatment options, medications that might slow the progression. You were upset, but you seemed to handle it okay. You said you wanted to fight it. September. That was 2 months ago. 2 months of my life just gone. What happened after that? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Emma came back to the bed and sat down, pulling her chair closer. You started on medication, Aricept. You hated the side effects. Nausea, vivid dreams. You kept saying it made you feel worse. I told you to give it time, that your body needed to adjust, but you... She paused, choosing her words carefully. You got frustrated, angry sometimes. That wasn't like you. I was angry at you, at everything, at your body for betraying you, at the diagnosis, at Mom for not being here, at me for hovering. She smiled sadly. You told me I was smothering you. I couldn't imagine saying that to Emma. She was my whole world, especially after Sarah died. But I could imagine the fear that would make me say it. The terror of losing myself, of becoming a burden. What else? I asked. You started forgetting more things. You'd leave the stove on, forget to lock the door at night. One day I came over and you were wearing your shirt inside out and didn't realize it. You laughed it off, but I could see you were scared. Each detail she shared felt like a small death. The erosion of my independence, my competence, myself. Last month you called me at 2 in the morning. You were panicking because you couldn't remember how to get home. You were at the grocery store, the one you've been going to for 20 years, and you couldn't remember how to get back to your house. Jesus, I breathed. I drove over and brought you home. You cried, Dad. I'd only seen you cry once before at Mom's funeral. You said you felt like you were disappearing. The image of myself crying in my daughter's arms, lost and frightened, made me want to disappear into the hospital bed. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Stop apologizing. You didn't choose this. What happened after that? She looked down at our joined hands. We talked about options, assisted living facilities, moving in with me and Jason, getting a full-time caregiver. You didn't want any of it. You said you wanted to stay in your house, the house you shared with Mom, for as long as possible. I understood that. I did. But I was scared. So you checked on me more often. Every day. Sometimes twice a day. Jason said I was obsessing, but I couldn't help it. I kept thinking about you alone in that house, confused, maybe hurting yourself by accident. Her voice broke. And then 3 days ago, you didn't answer your phone. Not in the morning. Not at lunch. I called 8 times. I texted, nothing, so I drove over. I could picture it so clearly. Emma in our car, trying not to panic, telling herself I'd probably just left my phone in another room or the battery had died. Ordinary explanations for an extraordinary fear. The front door was locked. I used my key. I called for you, but you didn't answer. I looked everywhere. The kitchen, the bedroom, the bathroom. I was about to call the police when I heard it. Heard what? The car. Running in the garage. The room suddenly felt too small, too hot. I could see it from her perspective now. Opening that door. The smell of exhaust. Finding me slumped in the driver's seat, unconscious. I pulled you out, she said, her voice distant now, reliving it. You were so heavy, Dad. I didn't know you were that heavy. I dragged you onto the driveway and called 911. The operator told me to check if you were breathing. You were, but barely. She talked me through CPR just in case. The ambulance got there in 6 minutes, but it felt like hours. Emma, I rode with you in the ambulance. They put an oxygen mask on your face and stuck needles in your arm, and one of the paramedics kept saying, "Stay with us, sir." And I kept thinking, what if this is it? What if the last conversation we had was that argument about whether you should keep driving? We argued about driving? She laughed, a wet, bitter sound. 2 weeks ago. You'd gotten confused coming back from the pharmacy and ended up 10 miles in the wrong direction. A police officer found you pulled over, disoriented. He called me. I said maybe it was time to stop driving, just for a while. You got so angry. You said I was taking away your freedom, treating you like a child. I tried to imagine this version of myself. Angry, defensive, scared. It didn't feel like me, but maybe that was the point. Maybe I was already becoming someone else. At the hospital, Emma continued, they told me your carbon monoxide levels were critical. They said if I'd arrived even 15 minutes later. She didn't finish the sentence. We sat with that for a moment. 15 minutes. The difference between life and death, between my daughter having a father and being an orphan at 34. Dr. Chen asked me if you'd been depressed, if you'd talked about suicide. I told him no. that you'd been frustrated and scared, but not suicidal. But then they found the note. My stomach dropped. What note? Emma reached into her purse and pulled out a piece of paper, folded carefully. My handwriting on the outside, for Emma. The police found it on the kitchen table. I haven't opened it yet. I wanted to wait until you woke up, until we could talk about it. She held it out to me, and I took it with shaking hands. The paper was ordinary, just torn from the yellow legal pad I kept by the phone. I unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was definitely mine, though shakier than usual. And as I read the words, I felt like I was looking into the mind of a stranger. Emma, I read. I can't do this anymore. I can't watch myself disappear. I can't make you watch it either. You deserve better than spending the next 5 or 10 years watching me forget your name, forget who you are, forget everything that made me who I am. I love you too much to put you through that. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But this is better, clean, before it gets really bad. I don't want you to remember me the way I remember Grandma Ruth at the end, when she didn't recognize anyone, when she was just a shell. Please understand. Please forgive me. I love you more than anything in this world. I always will, even when I can't remember anymore. Love, Dad. I read it twice, then 3 times, trying to find myself in those words, trying to remember writing them. But there was nothing. No memory of sitting at the kitchen table, pen in hand, making this terrible decision. I don't remember writing this, I said. I know. Emma, I don't remember deciding to. I don't remember any of it. She took the note back gently and folded it up. The doctors think you were in what they call a fugue state. The stress, the fear, the progression of the disease, it all combined into this moment where you made a decision you wouldn't normally make. Dr. Chun says it's not uncommon in early-stage Alzheimer's patients. When they first get diagnosed, when they first really understand what's coming, some of them panic. So I tried to kill myself, but I don't remember it. And it might not even really have been me making that choice. Something like that. I lay back against the pillows, exhausted by the weight of it all. This is insane. Yeah, Emma agreed. It really is. We were quiet for a long time. I watched the light change as clouds passed over the sun outside. Thought about all the days I'd lost, all the moments I couldn't recall. Thought about the man who'd sat at his kitchen table and written that note, so certain he was doing the right thing. Are you angry? I finally asked, angry? At me. For trying to leave you? Emma's face crumpled, and suddenly she was sobbing, really sobbing, in a way I'd never seen before. I pulled her close, letting her cry into my shoulder, stroking her hair the way I had when she was little and had a nightmare. I was so scared, she said between sobs. I thought I'd lost you. I thought you were gone, and the last thing we'd done was fight about your stupid car. And I'd never get to tell you that I understood, that I wasn't angry, that I just wanted you to be safe. I'm here, I said. I'm right here, sweetheart, but for how long? She pulled back, looking at me with red, swollen eyes. How long before you forget me? Before you forget Mom? Before you forget everything? And there it was. The question that hung over everything else. The future that waited for us, inevitable and terrifying. I don't know, I said honestly. Dr. Martinez said early stage. What does that mean? Months? Years? She said it varies. Some people progress quickly. Some people stay stable for years. There's no way to know. And medication? Might help. Might not. It's not a cure, Dad. Just a way to potentially slow things down. I thought about that. About the long, slow decline I'd witnessed in Grandma Ruth. The way she'd gone from forgetting names to forgetting how to feed herself. The way she'd looked at Sarah with suspicion and fear, convinced her own daughter was a stranger trying to hurt her. I don't want that for you, I said. I don't want you to have to go through that. I don't care what you want, Emma said fiercely. You don't get to decide to leave me just because you're scared. You don't get to rob me of whatever time we have left just because it's going to be hard. But Emma, no, listen to me, Dad. You think you're protecting me? You think finding you in that garage, thinking you were dead, was protecting me? That was the worst moment of my entire life. Worse than when Mom died, because at least with Mom, we knew it was coming. We got to say goodbye. You were going to leave me without any of that. You were going to make me wonder for the rest of my life if I'd done something wrong, if I'd missed some sign, if I could have saved you. The words hit me like punches. She was right. In my panic, in my fear, I'd only thought about what I didn't want her to see. I hadn't thought about what I'd actually be doing to her. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it with everything in me. I know you are, but you need to promise me something, anything. Promise me you won't try that again. Promise me that no matter how hard it gets, no matter how scared you are, you'll let me be there. You'll let me help. I looked at my daughter. At 34, she looks so much like her mother, it sometimes hurt to look at her. The same dark eyes, the same stubborn set to her jaw. Sarah had been a fighter too, right until the end when the cancer finally won. She'd never given up, never stopped trying to squeeze every last drop of life out of her days. I promise, I said. Emma hugged me again, gentler this time. Thank you. Over the next 2 days, more memories started trickling back. Not everything, but pieces. I remembered the doctor's appointment in September. I remembered how clinical Dr. Martinez had been, how she'd explained that Alzheimer's was progressive, incurable, but treatable to a degree. I remembered Emma's hand in mine, squeezing tight. I remembered starting the medication and how sick it made me. The nausea was constant for the first week. Emma had stayed with me, bringing ginger tea and crackers, sitting with me while I tried to keep food down. I remembered the night I got lost. The sudden, complete disorientation as I stood in the parking lot of the grocery store I'd been going to for 2 decades and had no idea which direction was home. The panic that had seized me, the cold sweat, the feeling that my mind was betraying me in the most fundamental way. I remember calling Emma, trying to sound calm and failing. Remembered her arriving 20 minutes later and the way she'd hugged me, without saying anything about how scared she must have been, but I still didn't remember writing the note. Didn't remember making the decision. Didn't remember going into the garage, starting the car, and sitting down to wait for the end. That absence felt significant. Like my mind was protecting me from that memory, or like the man who'd done those things was already someone else. Dr. Chun came back on my second day, awake with better news. My carbon monoxide levels were back to normal. My brain scans showed no permanent damage. Physically, I was going to be fine. The fugue state you experienced, he explained, is essentially a form of dissociative amnesia. Your brain was so overwhelmed by stress and fear that it kind of shut down normal processing. You acted, but not in the way you would have if you'd been thinking clearly, so I'm not in my right mind. I asked, is that what you're saying? I'm saying that the combination of a recent diagnosis of a frightening disease, the early stages of cognitive impairment, and significant psychological distress created a perfect storm. You weren't thinking the way you normally would? Does that make it better or worse? I asked. He smiled slightly. That's more of a philosophical question than a medical one. Later that day, I met with Dr. Sarah Reeves, the hospital counselor. She was in her 50s with salt and pepper hair and a calm presence that immediately put me at ease. I don't want to talk about how I'm feeling, I said as soon as she sat down. She smiled. Okay, what do you want to talk about? The question surprised me. I don't know. Nothing? That's fine too. We can sit in silence if you prefer. We did sit in silence for almost a minute. It should have been awkward, but it wasn't. Finally, I said, I don't know how to do this. Do what? Lose my mind gradually. Watch myself disappear. Make my daughter watch it too. Those are all very understandable fears, Dr. Reeves said. But can I offer you a different perspective? Sure, you're not losing your mind. You're experiencing a disease that affects memory and cognition. But you're still you. Right now, in this moment, you're still the man who raised Emma, who loved your wife, who has lived a full life. The disease doesn't erase that. It will eventually, I said. Maybe, but not today. And probably not tomorrow. Early stage Alzheimer's can last for years. You might have a lot of time left where you're still essentially yourself, just with some memory problems and confusion now and then. And after that, you'll face those challenges when they come. But you don't have to face them alone. You have Emma. You can get help, support, medical care. There are people who specialize in making this journey easier for patients and their families. I don't want to be a burden. That's what everyone says, Dr. Reeves said gently. But let me ask you this. If the situation were reversed, if Emma were sick and needed your care, would you consider her a burden? Of course not. Then why do you assume she feels differently about you? I didn't have an answer for that. We talked for another hour. About fear, about control, about the difference between giving up and accepting help. By the end, I felt something shift in me. Not acceptance, exactly. But maybe the beginning of understanding that I didn't have to face this alone. On my third day in the hospital, Jason came to visit. Emma's husband was a good man, solid and dependable in ways I'd come to appreciate over the 8 years they'd been married. He worked in IT, had a kind face, and a quiet sense of humor. How are you holding up? He asked, pulling up a chair. Better than I have any right to be, apparently. He smiled. Emma told me you made her a promise. I did. Good, because she would have killed me if you'd succeeded in killing yourself. Can't have that. I'd got bills to pay. Despite everything, I laughed. Wouldn't want to inconvenience you. Exactly. He was quiet for a moment, then said, Look, I know this is weird and probably the last thing you want to think about, but Emma and I talked. We want you to move in with us. I started to protest, but he held up a hand. Just hear me out. We have that guest room. It's actually bigger than our bedroom. We can set it up however you want. You'd have your privacy, but we'd be right there if you needed anything. Emma's worried sick about you being alone in that house. Jason, I appreciate it, but I know. You want your independence. I get it. But here's the thing, Frank. You're not going to be independent forever. That's just the reality. So you can either fight it and make everyone miserable, or you can accept some help while you still have the capacity to make choices about what that help looks like. He wasn't wrong. The man who'd sat in his garage with the car running had felt like he'd run out of choices. Maybe the trick was making choices now while I still could. Can I think about it? I asked, of course. We're not going anywhere, but the offer stands whenever you're ready. After he left, I sat with the idea. Living with Emma and Jason, giving up the house I'd shared with Sarah for 30 years. The kitchen where we'd cooked together. The bedroom where we'd slept, where we'd whispered plans and dreams in the dark. The backyard where we'd hosted 4th of July barbecues and where Emma had learned to ride a bike, but Sarah wasn't there anymore. She'd been gone for 3 years. And lately, I'd begun to realize that I wasn't really living in that house. I was existing in it, surrounded by memories but not making any new ones. Maybe it was time for something different. That evening, Emma came back after work. She looked better, less exhausted. She'd even put on makeup, which she usually skipped on busy days. Jason told me about his offer, I said. She nodded, suddenly nervous. What do you think? I think I'd like to give it a try. Not forever, necessarily, but for a while. See how it goes? Her whole face lit up. Really? Dad, are you sure? I don't want you to feel pressured. I'm sure. You were right. I don't want to be alone in that house anymore. And I don't want to put you through the stress of wondering if I'm okay every day. She hugged me tight. We're going to make this work. I promise. You won't regret it. I know I won't. And we'll take things day by day. If the medication helps, great. If it doesn't, we'll figure something else out. But we'll do it together. Together, I agreed. Dr. Chun discharged me 2 days later with a prescription for the Aricept. Instructions to follow up with Dr. Martinez in 2 weeks. And a referral to a support group for early-stage Alzheimer's patients. Remember, he said as we went over the discharge papers, what happened in your garage doesn't define you. You had a moment of crisis, and you survived it. Now you get to choose what comes next. Emma drove me to her house, not my old one. We decided there was no point in me going back there just to pack everything up and move. Instead, Jason had already retrieved some of my clothes and necessities. The rest could wait. Their house was in a quiet neighborhood in the suburbs, a 2-story colonial with a big tree in the front yard. I'd been there dozens of times, but walking in knowing it was going to be my home felt different. The guest room was on the first floor, which Emma said was better because I wouldn't have to deal with stairs. She'd already made it comfortable, bringing in my favorite reading chair from home, some photos of Sarah and Emma at various ages, and a bookshelf filled with books I'd mentioned wanting to read. What do you think? She asked anxiously. It's perfect, sweetheart, really. That first night, I lay in bed in this new room and listened to the unfamiliar sounds of the house settling around me. Upstairs, I could hear Emma and Jason talking quietly, their voices a soft murmur through the ceiling. Outside, a dog barked in the distance. I felt strange, unmoored, but also maybe a little bit hopeful. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Emma went to work every day, and Jason did too, but they'd arranged their schedules so someone was always home for lunch. I spent my days reading, watching television, going for walks around the neighborhood. The medication started working better as my body adjusted. The nausea faded. I still had memory problems. I'd forget conversations we just had, or lose track of what day it was, but they didn't seem to be getting dramatically worse. Dr. Martinez was cautiously optimistic at my 2-week follow-up. The Aricept seems to be helping stabilize things, she said. We'll keep monitoring, but for now, this is good. I started going to the support group. Every Thursday evening, a dozen of us gathered in a community center room and talked about what we were going through. There was Margaret, who'd been diagnosed 5 years ago and was still doing remarkably well. There was Tom, whose disease was progressing faster and who needed his wife to remind him why he was there. It helped, knowing I wasn't alone, that other people understood the fear, the frustration, the grief for a future that was slipping away. One evening, about a month after I'd moved in with Emma and Jason, I was helping Emma make dinner. Or trying to help. I kept forgetting which drawer held the silverware, even though she'd shown me 3 times. Dad, it's okay, she said gently. Why don't you just sit and keep me company? I sat at the kitchen table, feeling useless. I used to make dinner for you every night when you were little. I remember. Your famous Wednesday spaghetti. Thursday, I corrected automatically, then paused. Wait, was it Wednesday? Thursday, she confirmed. Every Thursday. Mom worked late on Thursdays, so you and I would make spaghetti together. You'd let me help with the sauce. The memory came back to me, warm and whole. Emma standing on a stool beside me, carefully dropping basil leaves into the pot. Her serious little face as she stirred, so focused on getting it right. You were such a careful kid, I said, so worried about doing everything perfectly. Emma smiled, chopping vegetables. I got that from you. Mom was the one who didn't care about making messes. You're the one who always followed the recipe exactly. Your mother, I said, and stopped. For a moment, I couldn't remember what I'd been about to say. The thought had been there, and then it slipped away, like trying to catch smoke. Emma looked over, concerned. Dad, sorry, lost my train of thought. She came over and squeezed my shoulder. It's okay. Happens to everyone. But we both knew it happened to me more than everyone else. More every day. That night, after dinner, I went to my room and sat in Sarah's old reading chair. I'd brought it from the house because it still smelled like her perfume, even after 3 years. Or maybe I just imagined it did. Maybe my mind was filling in what should be there, even as it lost other things. I thought about the man who'd sat in his garage with the car running. I still didn't remember being him, but I understood him better now. The fear that drove him. The misguided belief that disappearing would be easier than watching himself disappear slowly. But he'd been wrong. I'd been wrong. Because even with the memory problems, even with the confusion and frustration, there were still moments of grace. Moments like tonight, remembering Thursday, spaghetti with Emma, moments of connection that mattered. Those moments were worth fighting for. 2 months passed. Then 3. Christmas came and went. I helped Emma decorate the tree, though I kept forgetting where we'd put the ornaments from year to year. On Christmas morning, I woke up confused about what day it was, until Emma reminded me gently. We went to visit Sarah's grave on New Year's Day, something we'd done every year since she died. I brought flowers, white roses, her favorite. Emma and I stood there in the cold, not saying much, just being together. I wish she was here, Emma said quietly. She'd know what to do, how to help you. She'd tell you you're doing everything right, I said. Because you are, sweetheart. You're doing more than I deserve. You deserve everything, Dad. I looked at the headstone. Sarah Elizabeth Patterson, beloved wife and mother. The dates of her birth and death. 62 years, same as me. It seemed impossible that she'd been gone 3 years. It seemed impossible that I might forget her face someday, forget the sound of her laugh, forget the way she hummed while she cooked. I'm scared I'm going to forget her, I admitted. Emma took my hand. Then I'll remember for you. I'll tell you stories about her. I'll show you pictures. I'll keep her alive for both of us. In February, I had a bad week. I got confused more often, called Emma by Sarah's name twice, forgot how to work the television remote. Dr. Martinez adjusted my medication, and things stabilized again. But we all knew what that week meant. The disease was progressing. Slowly, but undeniably. Jason started working from home more often, keeping an eye on me. He never made a big deal out of it, just set up his laptop in the living room and worked there instead of his office. We'd have lunch together, watch baseball games in the evening. He was good company, never treated me like I was fragile or broken. You know what I appreciate about you? I said one day, my devastating good looks. You don't look at me like I'm dying. He was quiet for a moment. That's because you're not. You're living, just differently than before. That's a nice way of putting it. It's the truth. My dad had a stroke when I was 25, left him partially paralyzed. Everyone treated him like his life was over, like he was already gone. But he lived another 15 years. They weren't the same as the years before, but they were still good years. Still mattered. He was still my dad. What happened to him? Heart attack. Quick and painless, according to the doctors. He was watching a game, eating popcorn, and just went. Honestly, it's how he would have wanted to go. I thought about that. About how we all wanted to go quickly, peacefully, on our own terms. But life rarely worked that way. Most of us got messy endings, complicated and difficult and undignified. Maybe the trick was finding meaning in those messy endings anyway. In March, Emma told me she was pregnant. She'd been trying for 2 years with no success. They'd seen specialists, done tests, started to accept that it might not happen, and then unexpectedly it did. "You're going to be a grandfather," she said, tears streaming down her face. I hugged her close, feeling my own eyes well up. "That's wonderful. That's the best news. I'm due in October. October 15th, I think. October, 9 months away. Would I still be myself in 9 months? Would I be able to hold my grandchild and remember who they were?" As if reading my mind, Emma said, "You're going to meet this baby, Dad. You're going to be part of their life. I'm going to make sure of it." "I hope so, sweetheart. I really hope so." That night, lying in bed, I thought about the future, about Emma's child, about becoming a grandfather. It was something Sarah and I had dreamed about, talked about during those last months when we knew she was dying. "Promise me you'll be there for her," Sarah had said. "When she has kids, promise me you'll be the grandfather our grandchildren deserve." "I promise," I'd said, holding her hand, and I'd almost broken that promise. Almost taken myself out of the picture entirely in a moment of panic and despair. But I was still here, still fighting. And I was going to meet my grandchild. The months rolled on. Spring came, bringing warmer weather and longer days. Emma's belly started to show. Jason painted the nursery yellow, a cheerful, sunny color that worked for either a boy or girl. Emma asked me to help her put together the crib, and I did, even though I had to read the instructions 3 times and Jason had to correct me twice. "You're doing great, Frank," he said encouragingly. "I used to be able to build anything," I said, frustrated with myself. "You still can, just takes you a little longer now." "That's okay," but it wasn't okay. Or rather, it was okay, but it was also sad. Sad to know that I was losing capabilities, losing pieces of myself. Even the small ones hurt. In May, I had what Dr. Martinez called a significant incident. I woke up one morning and didn't know where I was. The room was unfamiliar, threatening. I panicked, started yelling for Sarah. Emma came running. "Dad, it's okay. You're in our house. You're safe. Where's Sarah?" "I need Sarah." "Dad, Mom died 3 years ago. Remember?" But I didn't remember. In that moment, Sarah was alive and real, and I needed to find her. Emma sat with me for almost an hour, talking gently, showing me photos, helping me piece together the reality I'd lost. When it finally clicked back into place, when I remembered that Sarah was gone and I was living with Emma because I had Alzheimer's, I felt devastated. "I'm sorry," I kept saying. "I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, Dad. It's the disease." But it felt like my fault. Like I was failing in some fundamental way. Dr. Martinez increased my medication again, added a second drug. Said we were doing everything we could, but that progressive diseases progressed. That was their nature. How much time do I have? I asked her directly. Before I don't know anyone anymore? That's impossible to predict. Some people maintain recognition of loved ones for years, even in late stages. Some lose it earlier. Every case is different. Best guess, she sighed. If the current rate of progression continues, you likely have at least a year, maybe 2 or 3, before you reach moderate stage Alzheimer's. At that point, memory and recognition become more impaired. But even then, you're not gone. You're still there. It just becomes harder to reach you. A year, maybe 3. It seemed like no time at all, but also seemed like enough time. Enough to meet my grandchild. Enough to see Emma become a mother. Enough to have more Thursday spaghetti dinners and Christmas mornings and quiet afternoons reading in the garden. Enough to matter. Emma's pregnancy progressed beautifully. She glowed, literally glowed, with happiness and health. Jason was attentive, rubbing her feet when they swelled, running out at midnight for whatever strange food combination she was craving, and I was there. Sometimes confused, sometimes forgetful, but there. I went to doctor's appointments with them when they'd let me, helped Emma pick out clothes for the baby, listened to Jason practice reading children's books with animated voices. "You're going to be a great grandfather," Emma told me one day in late August. She was huge now, uncomfortable, and ready to be done with being pregnant. "How do you know?" "Because you were a great father. Because you loved me so completely that even now, even with everything you're going through, I feel it. That doesn't just disappear." I hope you're right. I am, trust me. On October 10th, 5 days before her due date, Emma's water broke. Jason called me from the hospital, his voice shaky with excitement and fear. "It's happening, Frank. The baby's coming." I had Jason's sister drive me to the hospital. By the time I got there, Emma was already in labor, exhausted and determined. I sat with Jason in the waiting room, both of us pacing, checking our phones, trying not to imagine all the things that could go wrong. "She's strong," I told him. "Like her mother, I know, but I'm still scared." "That's how you know you're going to be a good father. The ones who aren't scared are either lying or not paying attention." At 3:47 a.m. on October 11th, Emma gave birth to a healthy baby girl, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. All fingers and toes accounted for. Perfect. They let me come in to meet her about an hour after the birth. Emma was propped up in bed, looking exhausted and radiant and more beautiful than I'd ever seen her. In her arms was the tiniest person I'd ever seen. "Dad," Emma said softly. "Meet your granddaughter, Charlotte Sarah Patterson Rivera." Charlotte Sarah, named after my mother and my wife. I felt my throat close up with emotion. "Can I hold her?" I asked, of course. Emma placed the baby in my arms, and I looked down at her little face. She was sleeping, peaceful and perfect, completely unaware of what a complicated, difficult, beautiful world she'd just entered. "Hello, Charlotte," I whispered. "I'm your grandpa. I've been waiting to meet you." She made a small sound, almost like a sigh, and her tiny hand wrapped around my finger with surprising strength. And in that moment, I understood something profound. I might forget things. I might forget names and dates and stories. I might eventually forget who I was, who Emma was, maybe even who this beautiful child was. But right now, in this moment, I was here. I was present. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And that was enough. I looked up at Emma and saw tears running down her face. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For staying. For fighting. For being here for this." I thought about the garage. About the note I'd written. About the man who'd been so certain that leaving was the answer. "Thank you for saving me," I said. "For giving me the chance to meet her." Over the next weeks, Charlotte became the center of our world. Emma and Jason were exhausted new parents, struggling with feeding schedules and diaper changes and the complete upheaval a baby brings to a household. I helped where I could. I couldn't always remember the details of what needed to be done, but I could hold Charlotte while Emma napped. I could rock her when she was fussy. I could sing to her the same songs I'd sung to Emma when she was a baby. Sometimes I forgot what I was doing. I'd be holding Charlotte and suddenly not remember why or how I'd gotten there. But it didn't seem to matter. She didn't care if I was forgetful. She just looked up at me with those dark eyes, Sarah's eyes, Emma's eyes, and I felt connected to something larger than myself. "You're so good with her," Emma said one afternoon, watching me walk around the living room with Charlotte asleep on my shoulder. "She's easy to love. So are you, Dad." I'd been living with them for almost a year now. A year since I'd woken up in the hospital and seen Emma smiling at me. A year since I'd learned what I'd tried to do, what I'd almost stolen from both of us in that year. I'd lost some things, More memories, more capabilities. Some days were harder than others. Some days I woke up confused and stayed confused for hours. Some days I felt like myself, just an older, slower version, but I'd gained things too. This time with Emma, the chance to see her become a mother, the privilege of meeting Charlotte, lazy Sunday mornings with Jason watching baseball, support group meetings where I'd made actual friends, moments of grace scattered through the difficulty like flowers growing through concrete. "Emma," I said, "I need to tell you something." She looked up from her phone, where she'd been scrolling through pictures of Charlotte. "What's up?" "I want you to know that I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you found me in time. I'm glad I didn't succeed." Her eyes filled with tears immediately. "Dad, no, let me finish. That day, when I wrote that note, I thought I was protecting you. I thought watching me decline would be worse for you than losing me quickly. But I was wrong. This year, even with all the hard parts, has been good, really good. And I don't want you to carry any guilt about what's coming, about putting me in a facility if you need to, or about making hard decisions. You've given me the greatest gift. You've given me time." Emma set down her phone and came over, sitting beside me on the couch. Charlotte stirred but didn't wake. "You've given me a gift too," she said. "You've shown me what it means to be brave, what it means to keep going, even when things are scary and uncertain. When Charlotte's older, I'm going to tell her about her grandpa, about how strong you were. I'm not strong. I'm terrified most of the time. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. Staying, fighting, loving. You've done all of that." We sat together in comfortable silence. Charlotte sleeping between us, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows. Outside, someone was mowing their lawn. A dog barked. Normal sounds of normal life. This was what I'd almost missed. These ordinary, extraordinary moments. "Do you remember the day Charlotte was born?" Emma asked suddenly. I thought about it. The memory was there, but fragile, like looking at something through foggy glass. I remember holding her. I remember thinking she was perfect. "You cried," Emma said. "You held her and cried and told her you loved her. I don't know if you remember that, but I do. I'll always remember it, even when I forget. Especially then. I'll remember for both of us." That night, I wrote in the journal Dr. Reeves had suggested I keep. A place to record thoughts and memories before they slipped away. I wrote about Charlotte, about how tiny and perfect she was, about Emma's joy and Jason's tender nervousness with his new daughter, about how grateful I felt to be here, to be part of this. I wrote, "Today was a good day. I'm scared of what's coming, but I'm not running anymore. I'm staying, because even though the ending is going to be hard, the middle still has beauty in it. And I don't want to miss a single moment more than I have to." 3 months passed. Charlotte grew and changed daily. I had good days and bad days. More bad days as winter came on, as if the cold made my mind freeze up along with everything else. One particularly bad day. I didn't recognize Jason, thought he was a stranger in the house, and got agitated. Emma had to calm me down, explain over and over who he was. By the time I finally remembered, I was exhausted and embarrassed. "I'm sorry," I told Jason. "Don't be. It's not your fault." "I know, but still. You don't deserve this." Jason sat down across from me, Charlotte in his arms. "Frank, your family shows up for each other even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You taught Emma that. She taught me. Now we're teaching Charlotte. That's how it works." In January, Dr. Martinez sat us all down for what she called a planning meeting. The disease was progressing to moderate stage. It was time to talk about what came next. "Frank, you're going to need more care soon. More supervision." Emma and Jason have been incredible, But this is going to get harder. What are you suggesting? Emma asked, though I could hear in her voice that she already knew. Memory care facility. Not right now, but soon. Maybe in the next few months. Somewhere Frank can be safe, where he can have professional care, where the burden doesn't fall entirely on you. It's not a burden, Emma said fiercely. I know, but it will become one. And Frank doesn't want that for you. Do you, Frank? I looked at Emma, at her tired eyes and the way she held Charlotte protectively. I looked at Jason, who'd given up his home office so I could have a bedroom on the first floor. I looked at Dr. Martinez, who was trying to help us all navigate this impossible situation. No, I said quietly. I don't want that. We toured 3 facilities over the next month. All of them were clean, professional, staffed with kind people. All of them felt like giving up. But in the third one, Willowbrook Memory Care, something felt different. Maybe it was the gardens outside each room. Maybe it was the director, Helen, who talked to me like I was a person, not a patient. Maybe it was the art room where residents could paint if they wanted to, even if they forgot what they were painting halfway through. What do you think, Dad? Emma asked as we walked through the halls. I thought about Charlotte, who is 6 months old now and starting to babble. I thought about Emma and Jason, who hadn't had a full night's sleep in months and were trying to care for both a baby and an increasingly confused old man. I thought about the future, about how much harder this was going to get. I think this could work, I said. Emma started crying. Are you sure? We don't have to do this yet. We can keep managing. I'm sure. You've done more than enough, sweetheart. You've given me a year I wouldn't have had. But it's time. The move happened in March, almost exactly a year and a half after I'd woken up in the hospital. Emma and Jason helped me settle into my new room, which looked out on a garden that was just starting to bloom with early spring flowers. It was small but comfortable. They brought my reading chair, photos of Sarah and Emma and Charlotte. Some books, even though I couldn't concentrate on reading anymore. You can visit anytime, Helen assured Emma. Anytime at all. And Frank can come visit you too, as long as someone's with him. After everything was set up, after we'd met the nurses and the other residents and gone through all the orientation procedures, it was time for Emma and Jason to leave. Emma hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I love you, Dad, so much. I love you too, sweetheart. I'll be back tomorrow. And the day after that. Every day. I know. And we'll bring Charlotte. She needs her grandpa. I'd like that. Jason shook my hand, then pulled me into a hug. Take care of yourself, Frank. We'll see you soon. And then they were gone. And I was alone in this new place that was supposed to be my home now. I sat in Sarah's chair and looked out at the garden. Thought about the journey that had brought me here. From the garage to the hospital to Emma's house to this room. All the moments in between. Thursday spaghetti and Christmas mornings and holding Charlotte for the first time. Was this the ending I'd imagined? No. Was it the ending I'd wanted? No. But it was the ending I had, and it was filled with more love and grace than I'd ever thought possible after that dark day in the garage. Emma kept her promise. She came every day that first week, then every other day, then 3 times a week as we all adjusted to the new routine. She brought Charlotte, who was crawling now and getting into everything. The baby didn't care that we were in a memory care facility. She just wanted to explore, to touch everything, to smile at the other residents who lit up at the sight of her. Sometimes I forgot who Emma was. Called her Sarah, or just looked at her confused, trying to place her face. Those days were hard for both of us. But then there would be moments of clarity, where I knew exactly who she was and how much I loved her. And those moments made the confusion worth it. One afternoon in late April, Emma came alone. Charlotte was with Jason's mother, and it was just the 2 of us in my room, sun streaming through the windows. How are you today, Dad? She asked. Good, I said and meant it. I was having a good day, clear-headed and present. How's Charlotte? Growing like a weed. She's trying to pull herself up on furniture now. Won't be long before she's walking. I wish I could see it. You will. We'll bring her by next week. We sat together quietly. I could feel there was something she wanted to say, something hanging in the air between us. Finally, she said, Dad, do you remember the hospital? When you first woke up? I searched my memory. Fragments were there, pieces of conversations, images. Some of it. Do you remember what I asked you? The promise I made you make? To not try again. To let you be there? Yes. She leaned forward, taking my hands. I need you to know that you kept that promise. Even on the hard days, even when you were scared and confused, you kept fighting. You stayed. I'm glad I did. Me too. Her voice broke. Me too, Dad. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. Me holding Charlotte on the day she was born, tears running down my face, looking at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Do you remember this? She asked. I stared at the photo. Remembered the weight of Charlotte in my arms, the feeling of her tiny hand gripping my finger, the sense of absolute presence, of being exactly where I needed to be. Yes, I said. I remember. Emma smiled through her tears. I'm going to keep showing you this picture even when you don't remember anymore. I'm going to tell you about that day, about how much you loved her, about how happy you were, because that moment matters. All the moments we've had since you woke up in that hospital, they all matter. They're not erased by what's coming next. I looked at my daughter, at the woman she'd become. Strong and brave and so full of love it radiated from her. Thank you, I said. For what? For finding me. For saving me. For giving me these moments. She squeezed my hands. Thank you for letting me. Thank you for staying. We sat together until the sun began to set, painting the garden outside in shades of gold and amber. And in that golden light, I felt something I hadn't felt since before Sarah died. Since before the diagnosis, since before that terrible day in the garage, I felt at peace, not because I wasn't scared anymore. I was still scared, not because I'd accepted what was coming. I still fought against it every day, but because I'd learned something in the year and a half since I'd woken up in that hospital bed. Life isn't about the ending. It's about the moments we collect along the way. The Thursday spaghetti dinners and Christmas mornings and newborn grandchildren sleeping on your shoulder. The times we let people love us even when we feel unlovable. The choice to stay, to fight, to keep showing up even when it's hard. I'd almost missed all of it. Almost robbed myself and Emma of these precious, painful, beautiful moments. But she'd saved me. And in saving me, she taught me that being saved isn't weakness. It's grace. The sun set completely, and Emma stood up to leave. She kissed my forehead. I'll see you Thursday, Dad. I'm bringing Charlotte. We're going to make spaghetti. Thursday spaghetti, I said, smiling. With basil. With basil, she agreed. After she left, I sat in the darkness for a while, not bothering to turn on the lights. Tomorrow, I might not remember this conversation. Next week, I might not remember who Emma was. Someday, maybe sooner than I wanted to think about, I might not remember anything at all, but tonight. Right now, I remembered everything that mattered, I remembered that I was loved, and I remembered that. Staying, choosing to live, even in the face of loss and fear and uncertainty, was the bravest thing I'd ever done. I closed my eyes and thought about that moment in the hospital, waking up to see Emma smiling at me. How confused I'd been, how scared, how I'd had no idea what had happened or why I was there. Now I knew. Was there because my daughter loved me enough to refuse to let me go, because she'd fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself, because she'd seen a future worth living even when I couldn't, and she'd been right. She'd been right all along.